Hello, everybody, and welcome. Hello, and welcome to Silverfort webinar. Very excited to be here today with you. We're going to talk about securing your service accounts with smart policy. My name is Yoad Veer, and I'm a product marketing manager at Silverfort. And again, super happy to be here together with you all. We're going to give it a minute for everybody to be able to join. And in the meantime, I've got a few housekeeping points I would like to cover. As the people are gathering, welcome again, everybody. So the session is recorded, just to make sure, get this off the board, and the recording will be available on the Silverfort Academy. If you haven't discovered our Academy yet, I would really encourage you to do so, as this is a place where you can find not only all of our past webinar recordings, but also a great selection of training videos. These are especially useful if you're just getting started with Silverfort or perhaps need some skills refreshed. Point number 2, this is a live session. The reason it is live is for you to be able and to give you the opportunity to engage with us and ask us questions. So please take the opportunity, take the liberty and ask us questions. The downside of this is that technology can sometimes fail us. So if you find yourself disconnected, please use the same Zoom URL to rejoin. And lastly, as I mentioned, the engagement and the feedback is really important for us. Please use the Q&A box in your webinar panel. Make sure you locate that now so you can ask us questions as we go along. We will stop a few times during the presentation to look at those, but we're also leaving time at the end to answer them all. I can see we already have a good number of attendees with us online. And this is a good opportunity to introduce my colleague and partner in crime, Shai Chaim, product manager for Silverfort, who is the lead for service account security features here at Silverfort. Hi, Shai.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
Super. So good to see you, Shai. We've got some interesting things to cover today. And if we're talking about the agenda for today, so today we have some dedicated time to talk about, then first of all, the nature of the risk of service accounts. And of course, talk about how Silverfort can actually help you to manage that risk. And most importantly, something that I personally look forward to is seeing the smart policy demo. Don't worry, again, we have time for Q&A at the end, but please get your questions in the Q&A box, but we will also try to either answer them in the end or as we progress with the webinar. So, shall we start off with that service account and what they are and what's risking for organization? Shai, take us on.
Yes, thank you, Yoad. So hi, everyone, again. Really glad to be here. We'll start with a little background about service accounts, right? And what are service accounts? I assume that most of you are pretty familiar with that term and these types of accounts. So service accounts are dedicated accounts, right, that are used by non-human entities such as applications, services, and systems in order to interact with each other, right, with other applications and other systems. We usually use them to automate certain like important processes in organization or performing important tasks, such as backing up information, transforming information from one application to another, performing security scans, and so on. And so we usually want them to operate right automatically in the background with no human intervention, right? We want them to be efficient and work all the time, right? Even at nights, even in the weekends. If we'll share a little bit more characteristics about service accounts, right, as we know them, they are usually highly privileged since they are performing these important processes and tasks, as I mentioned earlier. Then they usually have access to sensitive servers and information, and the potential damage if this kind of account is being compromised is pretty significant. Usually, most organizations don't have good visibility over their service accounts and their specific activities, right, and the original purpose of them. It's very challenging to protect them since I want them to work very efficiently in the background, right, with no human intervention. Then I'll very rarely rotate their password, if at all. I don't want to break anything. I just want it to keep on working. I won't be able to enforce MFA because there's no human that is involved. I'll deep down on that a little bit more in the next slide. And the last but not least, there are frequently misused by humans and admins that know the credentials of the service accounts and use them for their own purpose, right, and not for the intended purpose of the service account, using their like leveraging their access level instead of requesting this level of access like into their own accounts, right? So why is it so hard to protect service accounts? First of all, there are many service accounts in an organization. We have customers that have hundreds of service accounts, thousands, tens of thousands, or even more. And it really depends on the size of the organization and the nature of the organization. And they are often not well documented. So we are not familiar with all of them. We don't know what their initial purpose, who owns them, and so on. They lack strong security controls, as I've just covered in the last slide. Their password management is not strong. They don't have MFA, so their last line of defense is a password that is not very complex, not changing very often. And once they're being compromised by an attacker, he can continuously exploit this account with no interference. And they usually don't have clear ownership on them, or they're like in organization, there's no clear ownership on important processes such as lifecycle management, right? So for human accounts, the IT department knows about every new employee and knows whenever an employee leaves the company. And we know to create a new account in Active Directory or disable and remove it when the employee leaves the organization. And it doesn't happen for service account. So we have in organizations many service accounts that are left dormant in Active Directory, and that is an unnecessary, let's say, attack surface that can be removed. Another insight that I want to share with you from the latest report that Silverfort has released. You can see the low percentage of organizations, only 6% of organizations believe that they have full visibility into their service accounts. So that really demonstrates the problem and the fact that it's a real problem.
Shai, a quick one before we progress. If you can go back to the previous one, just want to say first of all hi to those that are joining, and great to see some many familiar names and Silverfort customers. So please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box. And again, welcome. Quick question, Shai, that came up. What are the security risks? Like the actual, what's the risk that service accounts in an unmanaged way, unmanaged service account pose to the organization? Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Great question. So first of all, the risk is the risk of getting compromised, right? And once a service account is getting compromised, right, the attacker can use it to move laterally in the organization very freely. They usually have, as I said, a high level of access, right? So you can access a lot of resources and maybe even, right, have access to higher permissions than you currently have and perform privilege escalation. So these are the security risks that are relevant, but also apart from security risks, there are also compliance risks, right? So as an organization, there are certain standards that I might need to apply with, and this is also something that needs to be considered.
And just to make sure, when we say the lack, you said no ownership or dormant, is that also comes together with the legacy applications, etc.? Is that the same issue pretty much?
So usually when we have right a lot of legacy in an organization, right, there have been a lot of applications that have been created and stopped working, or maybe projects that I wanted to start, right, and I created a service account for that, but eventually didn't happen. So eventually, right, with all that history, I might have even hundreds or more of dormant service accounts that I can just, if I had the visibility over
Hmm.
them, I could just remove them from Active Directory.
Brilliant. Take us forward, please. Thanks, Shai.
Cool. Thank you, Yoad. How does Silverfort helps organizations protect service account? First of all, it starts with discovery, of course, right? So you cannot protect something that you are not aware of. So Silverfort has an automatic discovery that works continuously to detect service accounts in your organization. It starts with analyzing the AD configuration, each one of the accounts in AD, to look for characteristics that are not human-like, but more service account-like. For example, we see an account that doesn't have an email address or phone number. But also, we analyze the activity of each account, and based on the activity, we can decide that it acts like a service account and detect it as such. So even if an account in Active Directory doesn't look like a service account, but based on its activities, I can say that it's a service account, I will perform the detection. For example, right, I'm seeing a repetitive behavior. I'm seeing an account that doesn't stop working even at nights, at weekends. So this is a few examples that can be used. Once we build that inventory for you and give you that visibility into all the service accounts and their actual activities, right? Everything, every sources and destinations and protocols that they are operating with. It's really important to prioritize since, as we said, you can have organizations with thousands or more service accounts, and it's really important to prioritize what comes first. And this is where Silverfort's risk engine comes into play. We can surface risk indicators per service account. We calculate the total risk score. We can highlight on a high level of permissions. And all of these insights and indications can help you prioritize certain service accounts, right, compared to others. Then you'll be able to use a very unique capability of Silverfort, which is the virtual fencing policies to protect the service accounts and restrict the access, actual restrictive access to everything that the service account is doing on its day-to-day operation. So Silverfort monitors the service account continuously. We're giving you that visibility of everything, all sources and destinations and protocols that this service account is using for the day-to-day operations. And then you can lock down, right, this behavior, and everything that deviates from that is being blocked. So let's take, for example, an attacker that compromises a service account, right? And he will try, of course, to access anything that he can. In that moment, right, Silverfort will block this activity, these authentications, and you will get a notification about it in real time that potentially, right, will give you the understanding that you have a malicious actor in your environment. And the last, but not least, all of these capabilities are really important to start with. But when you have thousands or more service accounts, you really need to automate, right? So Silverfort has released in the last year a few capabilities in that area. We have the ServiceNow integration that released, but also our general APIs that you can use in order to integrate Silverfort with your single source of truth that sits somewhere else. Maybe it's a ServiceNow CMDB, for example. that keeps all of that mapping, right, between the service account and the application and what resources the application is using. And all of that information can continuously be integrated into Silverfort and create automatically the most complete and adjusted service account policies. And the latest addition is the smart policy that we'll be focusing on today.
Brilliant, brilliant. So finally, we're getting to the exciting new feature. Just before that, just wanted to make sure we had an interesting question. If you could just go back for a second, my friend.
Of course.
And we had an interesting question from the audience. You tell me if this is the right time. Like there was more of, can you elaborate on the virtual fencing to make sure? But maybe you want to take it through the demo. So up to you.
No,
I think,
I can answer that now. If that's okay.
yeah,
Silverfort sits in the junctions of all authentications, right, in your environment. We sit on the domain controllers. So first of all, what that gives you, right, is full visibility about every authentication that is going on in your organization. And in addition to that, we are analyzing each authentication to find risk indicators, right, and define the risk level of each authentication. And you can create security policies, whether on human identities or service accounts. And you can actually, in addition to that visibility, actually control, right, each one of the authentications that is going on in your organization based on the specific account, based on risk. So that is the virtual fence policies that you can create.
super, super. So thank you for that. Let's progress, please. And now we want to interact. So thank you for the questions so far, dear viewers and participants. Now I want to share a poll with you, and which is interesting if you ask me. And the poll is actually based on, I want you to please go to the section on your screen that says polls, right? Then you're able, thank you, already start seeing results coming in. So we have a minute for the answers. Oh, wow. I feel like in the Eurovision Song Contest, but for service accounts. Thank you. So on screen, actually, there is no surprise. Some typical answers and responses and opinions we get from our customer that what are the barriers or what are the challenges around service account security? So we cannot deal with that because we want to just at all costs just avoid downtime, or we want to protect more accounts, but we don't have the right time, or sometimes the people unclear of the purpose of some of the service account, like Shai was mentioning before with dormant ones or unmanaged ones, or we want to test it. That's really cool. And it really connects to the smart policy feature that Shai is going to unveil in a second. And the poll closes in 10 seconds. So if you haven't voted, that's the right time, or unsure which one to prioritize. So let's see. I'm going to end the poll right now, and I'm going to share the results with you, right? You should be able to see the result on the screen. So 62%, the majority of the audience want to avoid service disruption at all costs. Like, if it works, don't touch it. In second place, we don't have the lack of time and resources. Maybe, it connects, we need some automation. Or lastly, we want lack of testing capabilities. Interesting enough, no one said, I don't have any challenges. So that's maybe a good one. Okay, so from time's sakes, I want to ask Shai, now that we understand what are some of the challenges that our customers have, avoiding downtime, let's start introducing smart policies. Take us on.
Great, great. Okay. So what is smart policy? Well, let's start with a high-level definition. So first of all, it enables you to protect multiple service accounts with only one policy. Okay, so instead of going service account by service account and enabling a security policy for each one of them one by one, I am now able to create service account policies to multiple service accounts in an automatic process. And currently, the smart policy is limited to only one policy per environment, but it is the foundation for creating and managing different policies for different groups of service accounts. Okay, so that is the plan for the future. So what are the big advantages here in the smart policy? First of all, it saves you a lot of time because as I said, instead of going service account by service account and enabling policies, you can activate policies to a group of service accounts, a bulk of service accounts. The process is then right very automatic. So we saw in the results of the poll that most of you fear from disruption of critical services, and this is why we suggest to our customers today to start with a notify policy, right? So Silverfort detects all the activities that the service account is doing. So you can go and create a notify policy for that service account, allow everything that has been detected up until now, and nothing, right? Nothing changes. Everything keeps on flowing. Even if there are things that we are hasn't detected up until now, it keeps on flowing, but you get a notification about that.
Mhm.
And then you can adjust the policy, right? You can ask yourself whether that is a legitimate action or not, and you can add it to the policy and continue on monitoring the account for another week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Eventually, you will get into a steady state for that service account. Nothing it's supposed to be new from that moment on, and then you can progress to a deny policy and actually block any deviation. So the smart policy is automating this exact process. Okay, so when you configure it, you define the total amount of days of consistent activity of the service account that are sufficient to activate the notify policy. Okay, so for example, 15 days when there is no change for the service account, no new source or destination or protocol, then I want to progress to a notify policy. On top of that, I want to wait an additional 15 days or additional 30 days of no change, right? And then I'll be able to progress to a deny policy. So everything was automatic. So therefore, it keeps on monitoring, waits for that condition to apply, and only then changes the policy actions.
So Shai, I'm too eager. Let's show it to us live. We want to see the demo. I can't wait. And you know
Perfect.
what's more interesting? So Christmas is not too far from now, is around the corner. So I'm interesting to see, if I can turn on my smart policy, put point it to the right OU or groups, and then just
Okay.
go and back from Christmas, everything is managed. So I'm really excited to see that. Show me, please.
Yeah. So I'll just cover the last point. Even though you're creating a policy for multiple service accounts, eventually the smart policy will activate the right policy for each one of the service accounts because it is adjusted to the activity of each one of them. So I won't keep you waiting anymore.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Let's move to the demo.
So while you switch to demo, I want to take the opportunity with the audience because we had some great, I want to share the second poll. We had some great responses before. So if you can actually please work with us on the second poll, tell me when you can see that. I'm going to launch it now. So basically, we are in a friendly environment, surrounded with our customers, and we want to make sure that we are talking to the right people. And Shai will talk about which version smart policy is included or to which version we would like you to update. So we are very much aware of the challenges or the current deployments that you have. So please vote about your current version with Silverfort. Let's take 10, 15 more seconds. Results are coming in. Again, Eurovision style. Oh
In the
yeah, I see
meantime,
it.
the beautiful dashboard is in the background.
Yes, yes. So in 10, 9, 8, 7. Yes, good results. So I'm ending the poll and I want to share the results with everybody and also Shai. So we can see that the majority of the participants are working on version 5.1 with 43%. Also, version 5.0 is coming in second, and versions 4.9 and below is the list one. Super.
Mhm. Great.
All right.
So first of all, for those who doesn't know which version they're on, so you can go to the dashboard, right? On the top right corner, you have the version. The smart policy is a feature that is available from 5.1 and above. Okay, so let's go to the service accounts module. You can see on the top right corner the new create smart policy. Right, again, you will see it only if you have 5.1 and above. Um, and another important thing to mention is that it's not active by default. Okay, you'll need to configure it and activate it yourself in order for it to run. So let's activate it. We have two options for the initial activation. You can either go to the service accounts table, select a few service accounts, and click on the Create Policy button. The smart policy configuration will open, and you can see those accounts that I selected already pre-populated in the policy scope. Okay, so that's a nice option to start with because maybe I want to test it out a little bit, right? I want to gain a little confidence with this new feature. So I can select just a few service accounts from the table and progress with the smart policy configuration. Another option is going directly to the Create Smart Policy button and clicking it. Then you will need to define the scope from scratch. Okay, there's nothing in it. So let's look for my service account groups, my production service account group, and let's select it. Another advantage in the smart policy is that capability of not only adding specific accounts, specific service accounts, but also adding AD groups and ADOUs. Okay, so if you're managing your service accounts in a dedicated OU and Active Directory, which is a best practice for managing service accounts, then this is an easy configuration for you. But also it works dynamically and it keeps on updating with the Active Directory configuration. So the next time there's a new member in that group or a new member in that OU, or right, an account is being removed from there, then the smart policy will automatically adjust. So let's apply the scope. Let's write a name. Okay, so protect prod SA. This is the name of the smart policy, but that is going to be the name also of each service account policy that the smart policy is going to activate. Okay, so this
Let
will
me
give you the
just
option.
stop you for a second. You mean that the name can correspond like with service account pertaining or to some department or a geolocation in the world if I'm working in a large organization distributed. So this is how I can
Yeah, so
manage
maybe
it more easily.
Yeah, so maybe in the scope, right, I have specific groups for service account, as you said, or an OU for different geolocations or different projects and production versus non-productions and so on. So yeah, I want to add all of these groups, or maybe the ones that I want to progress with. The name, since there is only one smart policy right now, right, you cannot configure more than that, then that is the only name, right, of the smart policy. Later on, when there will be a possibility to create multiple, then as you say, right, the name of the policy will also give you that differentiation between the specific use cases.
Mhm.
But still we're using that name today because that is going to be the name of each service account policy that the smart policy is activating. And then you'll have that visibility, right, on the service accounts that have a policy that has been activated by smart policy. And if you are monitoring the logs, the authentication logs screen, and seeing right Silverfort actions that have been performed due to a service account policy, you'll be able to see the name of the policy and you'll see what kind of, let's say, activities or noise, right, the smart policy is doing in your environment.
Mhm. Okay.
The next important configuration, which is the heart of it, is those time frames that I mentioned before. So here I'm defining the total amount of days of consistent activity, right? No change for the service account that are sufficient to apply a notify action or sufficient to apply a deny action. So here are the time frames that you can use, as you can see. I'll select, I can use immediately if I wanted to not wait any days, right, and go with a notify policy from the beginning. And I can select 15 days. And when I'm selecting the time frame for the deny, I can select never if I don't want the smart policy to activate deny policies, for example. But let's go, for example, today with 30 days. So let's give a few examples so you will understand these timeframes and how they work. So let's say we have a service account that for 15 days, okay, consecutive 15 days, there was no change in its activities, no new stores, no new destination, and no new protocol. At that moment, after these 15 days, we'll apply a notify policy on that service account, okay? And will allow all the sources and destinations and protocols that have been active in the last 90 days, okay? If for an additional 15 days on top of that, for a total amount of 30 days, we still don't see any change, then we'll progress to a deny policy, okay? And I'll give another example. Let's say that for another service account, I'm seeing 15 days, consecutive 15 days of no change, and I'm activating a notify policy. And then on the 16th day, I'm seeing a new source, for example. Okay, so from that moment on, I'll need to wait for another total of 30 days of consecutive 30 days with no change in order to progress to a deny. Okay, so I hope these examples made it more clear to understand the
So
time
just
frame.
making sure before you continue the demo, so the times, they do not overlap, they're measured independently. Basically, if there's a
Right,
change to the policy, the clock resets, right?
right, exactly.
Okay, let's continue, please.
Okay. In our demo today, I'll switch to immediately for the notify, okay, because I don't have the amount of days. Another configuration is send policy violations to the SIM, right? So each policy that I'll activate it with the option to send to the SIM. And we have the exclude configuration. Okay, it's pretty similar to the scope, but it's the out of scope configuration. So here I can define certain accounts, certain groups, certain OUs that I want to exclude from the group, from the smart policy. So if, for example, I'm including in the scope a large OU, and I want to exclude certain accounts, right? So this is the configuration that I'll use for that. And you can see on the bottom of the screen, right, the total amount of accounts in scope of the smart policy. So we are taking all the accounts that are in scope, we are excluding, decrementing the ones that are excluded in the exclude configuration, and we are giving you that total amount. Currently in 5.1, we're telling you the total number of accounts, whether they are service accounts or not service accounts. In 5.2, we're going to tell you specifically how many service accounts you have in that scope. But either way, 5.1 or 5.2, smart policy activates policies only to service accounts. Okay, so there's no way that all of a sudden a human account that is there will get a service account policy.
Cool.
Well, let's save and activate.
Mhm.
Great. So you can see that the smart policy is active. And you can see that the policy sync is in progress. Okay, so the smart policy is running, right? It's analyzing the scope, looking for the configurations, the conditions. The smart policy runs every time I save the configuration. So now that I created it for the first time and saved the configuration, it runs right now, immediately. Every time that I'll edit the smart policy configuration, so I can click on that button anytime I want, right, and adjust the configuration. So every time that I'll save after edit, it will run again immediately. but also regardless of saving the configuration, it runs every 6 hours. Okay, so even if I had no change in this smart policy configuration, it will run in iterations of 6 hours.
Hi,
So we can,
interesting question. I think it's very relevant to what you're actually demonstrating right now. Um, what if you already have some service account policies set up? Should we delete them and move to smart policy?
good question. So the smart policy doesn't revert any configuration that has been there before. The smart policy will only add on top of that, let's say. So if there's a service account with a notify policy, but based on the configuration and the baseline change, right, parameter, we can see that we can activate a deny policy, then the smart policy will kick in and activate the deny action for that service account. Okay, so it just adds on and takes me forward.
Okay.
As you can see right now, so we have protected service accounts, right? You can see we had zero protected service accounts before, and now we have much more. You can see here under the account info,
Mm.
the indication that it's being protected by smart policy, why the smart policy activated that policy.
Mhm.
If we open the service account, okay, we will see that first of all, it's a notify policy, right? Based on the configuration, I wanted to go immediately with notify policies. And it's not a deny yet because the baseline change has been in the last 15 days and we don't have 30 days of consistent activity. We also, as you can see, enabled the send to SIEM option. And if we look at the sources and destinations and protocols that the smart policy allowed, it allowed only resources that have been active in the last 90 days. So that service account, for example, is not using LDAP or LDAP-S, so it's not being allowed in the smart policy. If we look at the sources configuration, right, everything has been active, right, so everything is allowed. The same thing about the destinations. Okay.
All right.
That's wraps the demo.
So don't be so hasty on wrapping the demo. We have an interesting question, and I want to also to raise another one. So one from a management perspective, right? So what would be the best way, to see what's going on, what has been activated, what not, monitor, logging, etc. And it also and a very specific question: who receives those notifications, for once I set up a policy for several accounts?
Nice. Okay. So first of all, you can go to the monitor notifications, and you can see we have an event log for every activity that either the user is
Mhm.
doing in the smart policy configuration or the smart policy is doing for service accounts. So you can see here the event logs that are saying that the smart policy created a notify policy for this and that account. Okay, but we also have additional logs about the configuration, okay, that the user activated the smart policy and what that configuration included. So everything is logged. So you can see that activity. But also, if you go into the authentication logs screen, you will be able to filter according to the smart policy name, right? And see all of those actions that are being performed on authentications because of the smart policy, right? The smart policies actions that are doing on authentications in real time in your environment. The next question, can you remind me the next one? The second one?
So about the notifications.
Oh,
Who
who gets
receives
the
notification
notification?
once we set up several accounts?
Right.
And yeah, the chat is actually exploding, so we have to be cognizant of time. So let's see the notifications.
Okay.
We'll
So,
switch and then we'll make sure we answer the questions in the end. Yeah. So
great.
notification,
So
please.
regarding notifications, first of all, you can see them through the authentication log screen. Okay. And you can filter, right, create any filter that you would like, and you can, based on that filter, create daily reports that you can get by mail. Okay, so that is one option. If you're using the send to SIM option on the policies, then you'll be able to export this information, these notifications via syslog to your SIM, okay? But also our latest addition in that area, you also be able to export this information not only via syslog, but also via webhooks.
Mhm.
So that is an addition that we added lately. Okay, so you can see the syslog, right? I'm adding a syslog server. I can choose that I want to send service account violations. Okay, and then for each policy that I mentioned that I wanted to be sent to SIM, then it will be sent. But also in our new webhooks, okay, I
Mhm.
can also send service account violations to the SIM, but via webhook and not syslog.
So this is perfect so far. I would like to ask you, we have some still pending questions. We'll take them in the end. Don't worry, dear audience, and thank you. Bring them on. I mean, those are making our session really interactive, which we appreciate. Please take us to best practices, how to start, demo wrap
Great,
up, if you may.
great. Okay, so let's do some recap about a few important facts. So first of all, smart policy is disabled by default, right? You need to activate it yourself, and you must define the scope of the smart policy. It doesn't run on all detected service accounts. It runs only on the scope that you define. The defined scope, we currently are telling you the total amount of accounts there and not only service accounts. We said it's going to change in 5.2, but anyway, smart policy only applies to service accounts identified by Silverfort. Currently, there's only one smart policy that you can create in an environment, but as I said, there are plans for the future to extend that and have multiple policies. We understand the need for that.
Mhm.
In terms of operation, the smart policy runs every 6 hours, but also immediately after each policy change, after each time that you're saving the configuration. In that iteration, right, the Silverfort scans the scope of the smart policy, scans the baseline change parameter of each service account, and updates the policies accordingly, right, according to the configuration. In each iteration, the smart policy can activate up to 1,000 service account policies. Okay, so if we have, for example, 10,000 service accounts and the smart policy is calculating how many service accounts need policies, and let's say we have 2,000, okay, that we need to activate, then only 1,000 will be activated right now, and in the next iteration, we'll activate the additional 1,000. And if in the next iteration, right, we'll have more service account policies that we'll need to activate, then it will continue on being distributed
Mhm.
across iterations. Um, the smart policy doesn't revert the configuration as you had raised the question before.
Mhm.
So let's give a few examples. So if you manually activated policies before that, and then you like included in the smart policy, and then you removed it from the smart policy, we don't touch manually activated policies. Okay, we'll not disable it, for example. And if according to the configuration, this service account is supposed to have, let's say a certain service account has a deny policy, but according to the configuration of the smart policy, it should have a notify policy now, right? So we don't revert it to notify. We're keeping it as is, as the user intended to. And if you go to a certain service account policy that has been activated by smart policy, and you will manually disable it, then the next time the smart policy will not automatically reactivate it. Okay, because we understand that maybe you don't want right, the smart policy to activate the policy on that specific service account.
Mhm. Super. All right. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay.
So do you want to take some questions or
Well, I want to go over a few more things and then we'll open up for questions. So
okay.
if you want to just go to the next slide, please. I just want to share a few things also to be, cognizant and mindful of the time. So just real quick, um, before we hit the questions, I'd like to introduce our early availability program. So by joining our EA program, you'll gain exclusive early access to our latest Silverfort features and updates, play a vital role in shaping the future of our product. Smart policy was part of the EA as well. We tested this feature, to make sure it works properly and meets customer expectations. And if you want to be part of the EA program, simply get in touch with your customer success manager to find out more, or mail us at the email alias and address on the screen. Now, something really exciting that you may or may not have heard in the news all across the media yesterday. So Silverfort plus Resonate. We're excited to share that we've acquired Resonate, an innovator in identity security for cloud environments. And with this acquisition, we're expanding and enhancing our cloud identity security capabilities to go and cover cloud identity providers, Okta, Entra, the Ping, and others, and cloud infrastructure like AWS, Azure, etc. If you'd like to learn more, this is the real opportunity here. We're willing and we're very much welcoming you to join one of our sessions with our CEO and co-founder, Head Kovetz, on December 3rd. We have 2 times available to fit both sides of the world, and share the registration link in the follow-up email and also share it in the chat and the recording. Great opportunity to talk to the man himself, register. You don't want to miss that. Now, making sure we want to move on to the questions. First of all, Shai, thank you so much for being awesome and sharing all this with us. And we have some interesting questions that I want to tackle. Now, the first one, let's see. We talked about notifications. All right. How can you monitor? That's an interesting angle. How can you monitor the effectiveness of smart policies before fully enforcing them? Is there a way that I want to be sure that I'm doing the right thing? Can I monitor the effectiveness of those smart policies?
Okay. Interesting question. So the smart policy is based on the new baseline change parameter that we've added recently in 5.0. So regardless of the smart policy, you can see that that information, that column in the service account table, and you can see the time frame of the last change in the baseline change for each one of the service accounts. So you
Yeah.
can filter based on that column, right? And you can monitor that column. And let's say if you want to activate notify policies after 15 days and deny after 30, you can search for that, right, in the inventory, or maybe create a CSV report to do that offline. And you can actually see, right, who are these accounts that are going to get a notify policy, and who are these accounts that are going to get a deny policy.
Super, super. So moving on, next question. This one is coming from Tim. So in the case of adding new service accounts to the group or respective OU, or the deletion/decommission of the service account, will the smart policy pick up the change, or will it wait until the next update cycle?
Great. So we are running our AD sync continuously, right? So it's we will learn about it very fast, pretty fast. But the smart policy itself run in cycles of 6 hours. Okay, so only in the next iteration it can be up to 6 hours, right? We don't know exactly where we are in that window. So it can take up to 6 hours until the smart policy will actually change something, right? Because of the configuration change in Active Directory.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Next question. I must say it's like sounds like a tricky one, but you tell me. Not super tricky. I'm just teasing you here. Can custom insights be used to enhance the service accounts identified by Silverfort to enable smart policy to be used across all service accounts rather than those identified by Silverfort? I mean, not sure.
Nice. Okay. So first of all, you can use the custom insights to put in, right, your convention, right, the way that you're managing service account in your organization, and add to the algorithm that we use to detect service accounts. Or if you're managing them in a specific OU or AD group or using specific naming conventions, then put that information in, right, and we'll uh, why will detect those service accounts as well, in addition to our algorithm.
Mhm.
Um, Currently, in the smart policy scope, it's like an independent configuration. Okay, you'll need to define the scope with a specific group or OU or specific account. So currently, these configurations are not synced with each other. But of course, that once, right, once you've added that configuration to the custom insight, those are service accounts that are detected by Silverfort. And if they are included in the smart policy scope, then we will run on them as well.
Interesting. Thank you. So, in the matter of time, we have two more questions, and I want you to do, kind of a fast answer. I'm giving to you. Give me a fast answer as deep as you can, so we'll be respectful of time.
Okay.
So this one coming from an anonymous attendee. Can we imagine creating a dynamic group in AD so Silverfort can automate the addition of new service accounts into Smart Policy?
Okay. I hope that I understand the question. You can do that, right? If you want to create an easy configuration, let's say in the smart policy, and in order for that, you want to group certain service accounts in that group and add it. Okay, it's based on Active Directory. Okay, so we'll need that group in Active Directory. We'll need those accounts members of that group in order for the smart policy to work on that.
Okay, super. So basically best practice, create a group, everything that comes in there,
Yeah,
scope, Smart Policy we'll go
yeah.
into.
If you're not already doing that, yeah.
Yep. So that's the best practice. Last question, kind of take us to a little bit of a different approach. If you think it's too long, we can also take it in email, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So do smart policies, take away the need for passport rotation, and if not, what's your recommendation around that?
So even before smart policies, the unique capability of Silverport White with the virtual fence policies is a great solution, right? A unique solution that you can use in order to protect your service accounts, right? So that burden of rotating password is something that is maybe less of a concern once you have that level of protection of your service accounts. So yeah, even before that, it's the same thing.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. So explore the solution. Lovely. So that's a wrap. That's a wrap for the webinar again, Shai, and thank you so much for being super deep and
Thank you. I hope it was helpful. Thank you everyone for joining.
thanks everybody, and hope it was fruitful and listening from the master. Thanks for joining, and if you have any more questions, talk to your customer success manager, and you can find this recording and other webinars at the Silverfort Academy. Take care. Goodbye.